everyone, this is Ian Schaefer here with UDA Technologies, and we are just about ready to take a first look at some of the new enhancements that we've made available for you guys in ScoreCard. Today we're looking at getting an insight into your team's productivity with ScoreCard 2.0. And joining me, of course, for the webinar today is my colleague, Holly Gibson.
Hi everyone, great to see you here today.
Now, of course, getting started, today we're taking a look at basically the main underlying foundation for a good project management system, and this is productivity. So as we're looking at this today, our focus is going to be all about measuring how your team is doing, showing you areas where you can find your most productive team members, or find areas where some of the other team members maybe need to perform a little bit better to measure up. And so, of course, as we're taking a look, we're going to be covering a lot of content. Now, of course, everything that we're looking at right now is all in Construction Online. For those of you guys who are already using it, or for you who have had a chance to attend these webinars, Construction Online is a very powerful, very widely adopted project management system. We're looking at having over 650,000 users at this point. We're covering something like 80 countries or close to it. The number is growing all the time, so I always have to double check when we're looking at this. But we also give you the ability to do a lot. And within the Construction Online platform, either through the website itself that we're looking at here, or through the mobile app that you can download for free from Google Play or the App Store, you'll be able to do things like add punch lists and to-dos and everything through the project tracking system. This gives you the ability to create content assignments and take a look at all the different information that might be available. Under communication, we're going to be tracking emails and sending out messages and announcements. We're going to be following along with RFIs and submittals and transmittals. Tons of content and communication that's going back and forth for a wide variety of team members here. Calendars and schedules, of course, we've got a lot going on there too. You've got a full Gantt chart scheduling system. It's the fastest and most powerful available on the web today. And through that, you're going to be assigning out a lot of tasks. You're going to be creating calendar appointments and meetings. Again, lots going on. Even if you want to keep it simple, even through document management, we're going to be uploading files and taking pictures left and right. Hundreds, if not thousands, of documents are going to be showing up in this platform for you and your team every day. And as a result, we need to find who our most prolific team members are and find an easy way to track. Now, the beauty of that is ScoreCard covers all of that need and then some. So we're going to shift over and start taking a look at the company ScoreCard. But before we dive into that, Holly, you've been tracking progress and managing a team full of people here. What are some of the high points, or what are some of the key metrics that you like to look at when you're looking at your team and measuring their production for your company?
Well, for what we do, when I'm looking at my team, what I want to look at are things like, how many customers has this person worked with this week? How many tasks have they completed? How many calls have they been able to be a part of? That sort of thing. I'm also looking at kind of the numbers, how they're performing from a numbers-based standpoint. So we're always looking for, anytime you're working with a team of people and working with a group of projects or even a single project, we always really want a way to measure success. It's great to be able to go back and actually look at numbers, kind of track with your team, see how they're doing, where there might be an opportunity for you to step in and help someone perhaps be a little bit more productive. And it's also nice to then look at those numbers, not just on an individual basis, but as a team. How are we doing? Are we meeting the goals that we've set? Are we falling behind maybe on any of the tasks that we have, that we have assigned to us? What does that look like as a team?
Mm-hmm. And again, that coupled with, of course, all of our experience working with all of you and through our partnerships with groups like Remodelers Advantage and Renovantage, and NARI, I think we had a couple of meetings with, and NAHB. We've even had some opportunities to go meet some smaller groups, and this is always a topic. We've always got a couple of strong team members, and we've got a couple of team members who kind of need to be carried along a little bit, and we're just looking for ways to kind of show or showcase what our best team members do and give goals for everybody on the team to achieve. Now, of course, Setting those goals is important. Measuring them is equally important. My expectation is that if we set a goal, then we should be meeting it sometimes, maybe not always. Sometimes a goal is just something nice to strive for, but we always need to have some good measurables, and we want the team to succeed. We want that sense of accomplishment. And so as we're designing ScoreCard, and we made some of these major enhancements to the ScoreCard feature, just like Holly said here just a moment ago, we want to make sure that you can, first of all, get to it very, very easily. And when you're looking at it as an overall, as a manager or an owner of a company, my first place to check has always been going in and taking a look by user. Now, as we're looking at each of the users, these are the company users within the platform. And what we're looking at in this area is we've got a list of all the different features and areas where they can be entering in content, or we can be entering in content, I suppose, since you and I are both on the list right now. We can take a look at where we're entering in the content in each of these different areas for all the projects overall. And it just shows us in this handy little graphic exactly how many items of each type we've put together. You can even see in here how many are being added, changed, or modified, or updated. Schedule percent complete, for example, is going to be updated on a regular basis. And then, of course, we can see the actual tasks that are being completed in here as well, or checked off. Now, again, all of this you can find just by hovering over these various different areas on the ScoreCard graph itself. This dashboard or this metric just gives you an easy way to kind of go through and recap what everybody's doing. Jim here, for example, he's a content creator. He's uploading a lot of files and taking a lot of pictures. You can see down here that for my profile in this account, we've been creating some punch list items and updating some schedules and things like that. Holly, of course, our most prolific creator here, she's got tons of files, tons of punch list items that she's been putting together. She's even been working in Redline to create new markups and to attach items to sets of plans on here too. And again, all of this we can see at a glance just by what we're looking at. Now, some other fun pieces of information that you can get immediately by taking a look at this. Of course, up top, we're showing individuals. Down below, we're showing kind of a comprised view, a company-wide grouping. So for items, tasks, and to-dos, for the previous 4 weeks, we've created 340 tasks. Now, of course, this is much, much higher. We've just recently started measuring, so as you guys are first getting started, you'll notice that this number climbs, but it's a great place to go get a pulse for how your team is working over these jobs. This number should stay relatively constant. You want it to be maybe up and down a few percentage points, but if you notice that it's dropped 50%, people have stopped logging content, and that's bad because now you can't follow up. And if it spikes, if it goes up a lot, well, that's maybe when we want to go in and start taking a look at time frames. Because one thing that I'm always concerned about is every day on every job, people should be posting in their tasks and adding in logs and things like that. If I notice a huge spike, my first concern is that they all waited for 3 or 4 weeks to put in their stuff. And I've seen it. But it's a good way for you to go in and just keep up with this information. Same thing as we move across to the left. You can see all the pending items that are being included or completion over here on the far left, all the items that are being created versus the items that are being checked off. Again, great little overviews for what we want to see for the company as a whole.
That's right. Well, what you'll notice with Construction Online is that it really is more than just project management, more than just a place to store information. We really give you a lot that you can do with that information. In fact, it's one of the things that over the years users have told me that they've really appreciated about the Construction Online platform as a whole, is the amount of information that you can access through the various dashboards and graphs that we've provided related to different projects, related to different features maybe that you might be using. So you've got areas that will provide things like financial dashboards and schedule baseline dashboards. This is really a different type of dashboard that does the same thing for your team and their productivity. So rather than looking on just a project by project basis, we're really looking more now at a team basis here. As you start to dive into this information. So for example, looking here at our overall completion percentage, again, you're right. You'll see that sometimes spike up and down a little bit. You'll expect a little bit of variety there, kind of depending sometimes on where you are in the different cycles for your projects. It may be that you have a time of year where you tend to start up a lot, a time of year where you tend to perform a lot of that work and things like that. So you'll definitely see some of that change, but it's good to really keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with your team. What are we really doing? I love this overall completion percentage because it just helps me understand, okay, so of all the things that we need to get done, all of our tasks, all of our schedules that are out there, how far, from a big picture standpoint, how far along are we? We're not looking at just an individual schedule here, but we're really looking at everything my team needs to do. What does that number look like? So we're at almost 20% here. Then when I look at the next kind of piece of this, we're taking that same number, your pending number of tasks, and then showing compared to those previous 4 weeks, are we up or down? How many are outstanding today compared to 4 weeks ago? What does that look like for my team? So again, we want to, like you said, you're looking for something that doesn't fluctuate a whole lot there. We want our team to really be performing well, and we also want to know that there's enough assigned work out in the pipeline. If it's all completed, then what's to do next, right? So we want to make sure that there's that you have pending items, but you don't want to see that number jump from 8% now to then 50% next week, unless you know exactly why it happened.
Now, again, one other thing to keep in mind as well, down at the bottom, there's the little percentage that's showing effectively improvement. Right now, all the arrows here are green because we're doing better than we did in the past. We are down 8% on pending or incomplete tasks, and this is a good thing. It means that our team is finishing things as they should be. The next one over, we're down 99% on overdue and incomplete tasks in this period, which means, again, we're not letting things lapse.
That's right. In fact, I would probably say that this is even a better number, to watch when you're looking at tasks. Maybe that's better news for me because, it's one thing to be pending, but if we're letting things slip into that overdue zone, that's a real red flag. So to see such a great improvement there,
it's encouraging.
It's encouraging. It's great. That's exactly what you want to see. In fact, the goal here would be that your overdue is going to be listed as none. We really don't want anything overdue there.
That's absolutely right. And as we mentioned in the webinar last week, of course, the two main things that we shoot for on all of these projects is to come in on time and under budget. And again, as we were talking about that last week, the easiest way to make sure that you're on time is to make sure that everything fits your schedule. In this case, nothing should be overdue, so our goal is to try to keep this number as close to zero as possible. Now, one of the other things that I really, really love about this, by the way, is we've got the entire list of company users here at the top in this dashboard, but not all of our company users or our company members perform the same types of tasks. Right now, it's just showing us everybody in the company and how everybody is working on all these different things. But if you ever need to compare apples to apples, maybe we've got 3 project managers and your goal is to kind of focus on the work that they should be doing, you can also click on each of the features along the top of the graph to remove that as one of the measures. It just strikes it out and pulls that from the list to allow you to focus in a little bit more on the content that's being created within each specific type. Now, I'm a huge fan of this again because if you wanted to go through and show all the tasks that our sales team would be working on, maybe then we go through and remove everything except for like leads and opportunities, perhaps, or maybe files and messages and a couple of things like that. But again, site supervisors, totally different crew. Totally different responsibilities. So we're going to be turning off a lot of the sales tools like submittals, leads and opportunities, and turning on all the communication tools and the logging tools and the task management and things like that instead. So again, you can customize this dashboard a great deal as well to provide the additional reporting tools. Taking that a step further, if you actually click on the gear in the top right corner of this dashboard, you can adjust in a faster, kind of bigger way, how you want all of this information to be displayed. And then, of course, once you click Save, it'll auto-update everything that you see on the dashboard to match what we choose here for the chart settings.
That's right. Our goal really by default is to give you as much information as possible. And then from there, allow you to make some choices about how much of that information you want to see, or kind of based maybe on your team and how you guys are really using construction online every day to customize this a bit. Maybe you're not as worried about items being modified, but really want to focus heavily on completions. You would be able to adjust your dashboard to reflect that. And I think, Ian, you make such a great point about different team members and their roles. If you look at kind of the breakdown here, and we see this all the time in customer accounts that we're working with, files and photos is such a core thing. Most people are managing a lot of documents, a lot of pictures. And so you'll tend to see a lot of activity there. If you want to take that away, though, and maybe, drill down and look at how you're doing elsewhere, then maybe we can bring a little more attention to, how many change orders we're creating or managing over that same time period, or, RFIs that have been created or modified in the system. So all of that's going to be really easily customizable, just based on the information you want to see and the metrics that are important to you and your team.
And we should leave that one turned off because that lets me beat Jim. Now, of course, as we're looking at these things too, there's not only is it important to see which users are providing the best results in working with our customers and working on our projects, but it's also important to make sure that we understand where construction online as a whole is providing value to us as well. And this is where I tend to shift over to viewing the scorecard by type. Now, if we click into by type, you can actually see our metrics and see our numbers for all the different content that we're creating. Now, if we as a team are setting goals that we want to make sure that we have maybe 200 to-do list items added or completed over a given period of time, 400 punch list items perhaps, we can go through and adjust these as well so that we can kind of keep up with those numbers, and we can see which ones are being accomplished as we laid out in our goals or our targets. So again, Holly, back to that point from earlier, when we're trying to make sure that we're hitting our team goals for like a number of phone calls, as an example internally, we might be using this as a good way to track that. Here, we might also use this to make sure that we're keeping up with all of our leads as we should be, using tools like messaging, lead callbacks, opportunities. Those are a little bit light down near the bottom of the list, in part because we're kind of top heavy here with files, photos, punch lists, and schedules. But again, as we're looking at that, that tells me as maybe a managing director of client success or whatever it might be, that would tell me what we as a team need to focus on to make sure that we're doing better at communicating with our potential leads, filling our pipelines and such.
Yeah, that's right. And think about how quickly you can get that information. So, that having that type of information about your team and, kind of how you're doing with that productivity and goal setting and just big picture, it's so important to have. It's really critical, but often pretty time consuming to get there. We can tell just by pulling up our scorecard by type, I can see immediately that those leads and opportunities, we have not created any new ones. So that would be something that would probably be a red flag to you to say, why are we, what's going on here? Why are we just not entering them maybe into the system? Is that not being followed up with? Are we really not getting any leads? That would be, a little bit of, just an area that would allow you to take action on it quickly. I know, Ian, you have worked with clients before who set pretty easy goals for maybe field team members to upload a certain number of photos per day, or per week. So maybe the requirement is we need to do 50 photographs per week per each job site or something like that.
Sure.
You'd be able to look at the numbers here under your files and photos and see really quickly if you are on track. So we're just looking for big picture information, but if you saw this number much lower, that would be a red flag. You're looking at over the course of a month, so we'd be looking for at least 200 pictures per project. If I've got 5 projects going on right now, we're on target. If I've got 15 projects going on, we're probably not on target. So it just gives you a really fast way to assess that for your team.
Now, this also brings up another interesting point as well. So far, everything that we're looking at the scorecard is all measured for the past 4 weeks. Everything that we're looking at is basically the month of August, effectively, since here we are at the tail end of August. And if you were in a position where you wanted to do some comparisons, this is a good place to come and kind of explore the information. Now, again, to that point earlier about certain numbers or certain requirements per week, this is the perfect sort of area where you can go into and select whatever it is that you're going to be working off of, and everything will auto-adjust accordingly. if you're setting weekly goals, and as I hope most of you are doing, having a weekly meeting as well to review those goals, this is the perfect place to go. You can set it up so that every week you just load directly into this page all the tasks, all the content in the scorecard showing you every week. And again, you can just pull that pulse whenever you need to. It shows you exactly how we finished. And if we need to, again, focus on something like leads and opportunities. Now, one thing that I find to be a very, very easy, I'll call it a mistake to make. Looking back at the last 4 weeks by type, we didn't see any leads or opportunities in there. Now, one thing that I see a lot of companies do far, far too frequently is they'll go to an event, like a home builder show or some local, whatever it is, some local event that pulls a lot of leads all at one time, and then we spend the next month and a half, 2 months just trying to sift through those leads and find qualified leads. Now, the pain that I always have with that is that 2-month period, we're not nurturing what we have or capturing leads the way we've been successful in the past because we're so focused on this list of now 100 people, or we've worked with some clients that might pull in a list of 12 or 1,300 people or 2,000 contacts from an event like that. Every time we go to the International Builder Show, we come back with 1,000 new names or more. So again, it's easy to slip into that. And by looking at the scorecard, you can kind of get out in front of that by saying, okay, we do have this wealth of leads that we picked up from that last trade show that we did, but that doesn't mean that we need to ignore the people that are still walking in the door or still filling out the form whenever we direct them to the website or whatever it may be. Again, it reminds us that we still have our normal day-to-day job, no matter how successful we feel. No matter how much it feels like we're accomplishing all of our goals and firing on all cylinders, it's a fantastic reminder that we still have all of our standards that we have to meet for our day-to-day too. Those don't go away just because we have a big pile of extra stuff that we get to work on.
That's right. Well, there's sometimes a big difference between being busy and being productive. I know that all of you, and I feel this day to day too, there's busy days, and especially with projects as you're managing and kind of juggling everything, that you and your team are busy. This is a great way to see, does that feeling of busyness really translate into things that we, want to be tracking for sure.
Mm-hmm. And again, as we're looking through this, always bear in mind that this is a composite view. This is showing us all the activity for all of our projects. So again, as we're looking through this list of information, Holly, you were talking about the number of active projects that you've got right now. If I'm going through and I'm looking at this list, we might know as we're working through this project that we've got 5 or 10 or 15 projects. But if you take a look over at the projects list on the left, we probably have hundreds here. And it's important to remember too, as you're kind of looking through these lists, if you want to keep this scorecard accurate, you will need to go through and make sure that one of the last steps for any projects that are being completed is to right-click and archive those jobs. And that way they don't adversely affect what we're looking at here in the scorecards or the reports, so we can get a good measure for what's going on. This is also a great place to kind of go and make sure that all of the content that you're making available to your field teams through the mobile app is accurate too. You don't want to give them a list of 15 projects when they're only really working on 2. So again, periodically cleaning up the content that you have in the system is important, and it helps you get a better feel for what we're really working on as we're looking through some of these tools like ScoreCard.
Talking at the same time here. Yeah, that's right. It really does. It helps to make sure, that you guys are definitely, kind of clearing out those projects when they've completed. And this is such a great incentive to your team. I mean, sometimes a little competition can go a long way as well. I mean, no one wants to be the team member who has, no task beside their name. When you guys invest in a platform like Construction Online, the tremendous value that it can really add to how you're managing your projects, really the protection that it can provide you and your company to make sure that everything is documented well, that we're really tracking those change orders appropriately, that we're updating our schedules, that we're really kind of getting in there and just completing all of that project documentation, because a year after a project's finished, you're going to want to go back and know that you've got that documented somewhere. If questions come up, we're going to know that we've got all the tools in place to help those jobs finish on time and under budget. So it's good to know, maybe if I'm looking at a project manager that has nothing beside their name, it's a time to say like, hey, you need to make sure that you're documenting that. Or I heard you talking about a change order last week, but I don't see anything in here. It's just one more way for you to get information about how your team, again, is performing. That's really what it's all about. But more so than that, to be able to take then, action if needed to just make sure that everything's done the way that you want it to be done, and that the project is not only moving along smoothly now, but really well documented for the future.
It also helps us plan the projects that we're going to be working on in the future as well. So one thing that I also find really, really important with looking at a report like this, it gives you an idea on how your current set of projects are impacting your team. Now, if we do follow along with the scorecard on a regular basis, and we're kind of watching what's going on here, if you notice an uptick in change orders, or you notice an uptick in punch list items, and we're accustomed to seeing numbers somewhere in the 250 range, and we notice that number spike, well, that usually means that our clients are becoming a little bit more involved, or, pardon my way of putting it, maybe they're just getting a little needy, and they're just demanding a lot more time and attention. Well, again, what that tells me, if I'm getting the right view of my projects, that might tell me that my team is probably going to be a little bit late wrapping up all the projects that I've got on deck right now, which also then in turn means that they might be a little bit late getting started with the next projects. And so again, that's going to change the tone of the conversation that I have, not only with my team members, but it might also allow me to proactively reach out to my upcoming clients, the projects that are in my backlog. Maybe I can reach out to them and just go ahead and let them know ahead of time that we may be a week or two late getting those projects started. Again, just to make sure that everybody is kept up with, everybody is communicated with, and we set the right expectations before day one instead of waiting until afterwards, which is really when the things start to fall apart.
That's right. Another thing you can do with this information, if you're looking for actionable points, and again, it's really looking for those upticks, but if you're used to seeing a certain number, maybe for a punch list item, and I know so many of you guys are using our punch list tool really effectively, not only to manage quality assurance, but all sorts of checklists and things like that. So we might expect to see, like you said, maybe 250 or so on a regular basis if we're doing a good job with our inspections and checklists and things that we're doing regularly. If you see a pretty big increase over and above that, it might be it might indicate here that we're seeing also a little bit of slip in quality assurance. It may be that someone that you're working with, maybe the quality of their work, the standard has dropped a little bit, or you've got a new new team member or new trade partner that you're working with, and that's just kind of resulting in higher number of quality items or punch list items kind of entered there. That will be another area where you can look at that really quickly, kind of notice the jump, and then that's a signal for you to be able to then dive in just a little bit deeper to see if you can see why that's happening, and that's where you're able to go to your team.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, this is just a pair of examples on how you can get that kind of insight from the projects, but I will tell you one thing that this does that you will never be able to achieve with the traditional like legal pad style documentation for everything. You don't get anything even remotely resembling that kind of insight, especially not as quickly as you would using something like this, when you have to pull everybody's notes together and get all those legal pads in at the end of the week and compile all the data into a format that at least somebody in the office can read. Because I know if you guys are ever trying to read my handwriting, good luck. I wish you well. But again, it's one of those sort of things that Construction Online provides as an often unnoticed, humongous benefit. When everybody's putting in their information and when they're documenting things in real time accurately as again, issues crop up, what you get out of that is you get so much clearer insight on where your projects are going to be. and so much better insight on how your team is performing as a whole that you're able to make smart decisions on how to improve your business long term rather than reacting to everything that we had to work with over the past 6 months or so. Again, it completely changes how you run your business just by having that extra piece of information or that extra collection of data available to you at any time. Again, I'm a humongous fan of this feature. I think that it's a fantastic feature. And actually, when we were talking about setting up the webinar, the gentleman that we had developing this, unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us today. He was a little bit, I don't want to say dismissive, but he almost felt underwhelmed with the feature that he was working on. And it blows my mind that anybody couldn't just be thrilled or fascinated by having something like this available. Even 10 years ago, it's not the kind of report or tool that you ever would have had access to unless you have a team of like 3 or 4 hired staff members whose full-time position is just gathering this information and documenting it. Again, it blew my mind when we were talking about that,
right,
because I know where we used to be, and this is such a huge leap forward, and I love it.
That's true, which sounds pretty expensive to me to have a team of people compiling information, which is why most people don't do it. I think that's the other thing when you look at ScoreCard kind of big picture, is that it does provide a tremendous amount of value by giving you this insight, but that really translates into tremendous financial value. Whenever we're looking at new features and new tools in construction online, or either kind of the standards that you've had for a really long time that you've been working with, we always look and say, how is this adding value for our customers? How is this going to save them money every day? How is this going to save them time every day? And really, ScoreCard is providing you with information that you wouldn't be able to get without investing a lot of time just kind of going through things manually. And that's expensive. It is, to kind of set aside a team member to do that, which is why a lot of companies don't, or a lot of times companies don't do that unless there's, a major issue or a major flag that they feel like they need to kind of go back and look at. You get to the end of the job and realize that no change orders were documented or that things weren't responded to. That's not really the time to be looking at that information. So this gives it to you in such a real-time, easy to access way. I find it just incredibly valuable.
Same. Now, along those lines too, some interesting topics that are coming up as we're working through this. One of the questions that myself and Holly were kind of discussing before the webinar even started today was some of the future use for some of these tools. One thing that we're hoping to accomplish in the near future for ScoreCard is some form of automated ability to send this to you. Maybe something like an email that might go out on a semi-regular basis as well, just to make sure that not only do you have the tool that you can go into and find your content, but the tool itself reaches out to you as well to keep you notified. So we're exploring some of the functions and the features like that. This, by the way, is one of the other areas that we hope to highlight in webinars like this one in the future, as we've been working over the summer to provide all of these great new resources to you and your teams. We also want to make sure that we show you how some of these small changes could affect you, especially since, if you guys have been following for the past 8 months, the new Construction Online that we've released, Construction Online 2019, has not only been a huge enhancement, a tremendous enhancement over the Classic, but it's also provided so much more streamlined use for you and your teams, and we've had such fantastic feedback that we want to make sure that, just like with you guys keeping out in front of your jobs, we want to make sure that we are keeping you and your teams informed of what we've been working on too. So we always want to make sure that we're providing things like this. Now, of course, if you guys have any questions or thoughts or feedback, now's the time. Take a look at that GoToWebinar panel, send in your questions or your comments or your thoughts or how you plan to use this with your team in the future. We'd love to know. We want to also make sure that we're spending our time in all the right places. So by all means, share. We'd love to hear what you guys are currently using for this or for similar tools, or how we might be able to provide some interesting things for you guys in the future too.
Now, it looks like we have had some questions already start to come in, so we'll go ahead and address a couple of those while you guys submit your additional questions before we wrap up today. One of our attendees today just asked if there are any other dashboards or tools that we'd kind of recommend for that type of big picture planning when it comes to projects and forecasting. I know my answer. I'm not sure, Ian, what you would recommend. I think what I would recommend, or what I would say is when you're looking at big picture, this is giving you a lot of information about your team. One of the things that I really love is over in your company calendar. There's actually an alternate view. It's your year view, and it really is, it's a calendar, but it functions in a lot of ways like this ScoreCard dashboard in that it's giving you a lot of big picture information about activity levels at your company. So this really acts as a heat map to kind of show you your whole year at a glance. We can see red is where we are really entering into a high activity zone. There are a lot of items on the calendar, and that's going to include really anything that has a date. You know, we're looking at schedules, we're looking at tasks, punch list items, RFI due dates, all of that's coming together to really show me my overall activity levels. So this isn't called a dashboard. It's really part of your calendar, but to me, it really acts like a dashboard and allows you to get some of that big picture planning in place. Whereas with the scorecard, we're kind of looking on individual teams or individual types of tasks. With this, you're taking one step back even further and looking at a higher level across your company.
Yeah, and as we go through to kind of answer that question for me, rather than looking at reports or tools, I actually have a different one that I'm a huge fan of, and it's kind of, again, the proactive approach. For me, I love going to project tracking when we notice a little lapse in the daily logs. If you go to project tracking and open up the daily logging feature, we still have the ability to create reminders to your team to kind of coax them into getting their logs in place. Just open up any project, go to project tracking, daily logs, and click on the settings in the top right corner, and you can configure logging reminders to go out, again, proactively. You can send out text message reminders, you can send out email notifications, and what's really fun about this is after you set up these reminders, the reminder will look to see if the team is actually entering in their logs before it reminds them. It's not just going to send a reminder every day that says, hey, don't forget to put in your logs when the guys are 6 logs in for the day. It's going to notify them if they haven't done it. And so, again, for me, this one's always been a winner because like in this case, every week, why does it have to be me, Holly? Every weekday, you can set it up to send out that email notification if you haven't gotten a log from the person by 5. And it's just a great way to make sure that they're feeding this machine, making sure that everything is being kept up with as well.
I love that one too, because that's an action that if you haven't taken this step proactively, but you notice on your scorecard maybe a lower number of logs than you would like, then this is an action step that you can take to come in and really encourage that to happen.
Now again, we're just kind of going through and taking a look. Some of the questions, by the way, that you guys have asked may be company specific or user specific. So of course, if you guys are interested in getting any recommendations on how to best use this tool, or who to show it to perhaps, or who to share it with, anything like this, of course, if you guys do have specific questions, you can always reach out to us directly. The phone number here is 1-800-700-8321. Of course, for those of you who are in the United States and Canada, I believe. We do have international numbers available as well. I see that we've got some of our international attendees. One of them always impresses because he's here every week, every webinar, and he manages to join us even though it's like 11 or 12 o'clock his time right now at night. So fantastic, by the way, and thank you again for joining us. We're not going to drop names, but obviously he knows who he is. So again, if you guys are interested, you can always reach out to us like that, or via email. You can always send emails to support or info@uda1.com. And again, if you do have any specific questions, it's usually good to kind of touch on those one-on-one. So let us know, and we're happy to help.
That's right. We're happy to work with you guys. Now, before we wrap up, a couple of notes about things we have coming up. First of all, as always, this webinar and any previous webinars are available on our events page. So that's UDA Technologies. .com, and then you'll just head over to the events section. All of our past webinars are available for you. You can go back and watch those, and really be able to kind of dive into those topics in a little more depth, or if there are some that you've missed recently. We are gearing up for a new fall webinar series. So we are looking forward to, of course, the holiday next week. So we'll be taking a break. There won't be a webinar for you guys next week. The following week, we'll return by debuting a brand new feature that will be available for Construction Online. So I'm really excited to share that with you guys. As we're looking ahead to those fall webinars and workshops and lunch and learns and all of the classes that we offer, if there are topics that you'd really love to see covered, take a moment to chat those over or send us an email. We'd love to hear your feedback on that. And for today, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We've enjoyed working with you guys.
Yeah, take care, everyone.